Right now, somewhere out there, in a dusty drawer, an old piggy bank, or even mixed in your everyday pocket change, there could be a tiny coin worth a life-changing fortune. These aren't just coins. They're hidden pieces of American history, small, silver treasures that have shocked collectors and sold for unbelievable prices. And today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating coins ever made, the legendary Roosevelt Dime. At first glance, it looks simple, ordinary, just another 10-cent piece you wouldn't think twice about spending. But behind that familiar design lies a world of rare errors, missing mint marks, and ultra-valuable varieties that most people overlook every single day. Some of these dimes are so rare, so highly sought after, that owning one could completely change your life. From mysterious minting mistakes to coins that were never supposed to exist, we're revealing the top 4 most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered. So stay with me till the very end, because the number 1 coin on this list is so rare, so unbelievable. It has stunned even the most experienced collectors. And here's the craziest part. You might already have one. Welcome to Old Worth Coin, where ordinary pocket change turns into extraordinary treasure. Now, let's begin. Coin number 1 might be the most deceptive coin you will ever come across because it hides in plain sight, blending into everyday life so perfectly that millions of people have spent it without ever giving a second thought. And yet this small piece of metal carries a mystery that continues to fascinate collectors across generations. We're talking about the 1980 P. Roosevelt dime, a coin that on the surface seems completely ordinary, just another 10-cent piece struck in Philadelphia and released into circulation like countless others. But what most people don't realize is that within this massive mintage lies the potential for something far more exciting. Because the real value of this coin doesn't come from its date alone, it comes from the rare and unexpected minting errors that can transform it from pocket change into a collector's prize. And these errors are often so subtle that only a careful eye can spot them. We're talking about off-center strikes, where the design is misaligned, clipped planchets where part of the coin is literally missing, weak strikes that reveal unusual texture, and even missing clad layer errors where the coin appears with a strange copper or dull silver tone, each one telling a story of something going slightly wrong during the minting process. And in the world of coin collecting, those mistakes are exactly what can drive value through the roof. Because collectors aren't just buying coins, they're chasing rarity, uniqueness, and the thrill of owning something that shouldn't exist. And that's where the 1980 P dime becomes interesting. Because while millions were made, only a tiny fraction feature these unusual characteristics, making them incredibly difficult to find in circulation today. And when one does appear, especially in high condition with sharp details and minimal wear, it can command prices far beyond its face value, sometimes reaching into the hundreds or even thousands depending on the severity and rarity of the error. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Most of these valuable pieces are not locked away in museums or private vaults. They're still out there, mixed into everyday change, sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, and old collections, waiting for someone curious enough to take a closer look. And that's what makes this coin so powerful for collectors and beginners alike, because you don't need a fortune to start searching. You just need attention, patience, and a willingness to examine the details others ignore, from the texture of the surface to the alignment of the design, from the shine of the metal to the tiniest irregularity that might signal something unusual. Every detail matters, and every coin you check could be the one that changes everything. And while it's important to stay realistic and understand that not every 1980 P dime is valuable, the possibility that one might be is enough to turn an ordinary moment into an exciting discovery. And that's the magic of coin collecting. It turns everyday objects into potential treasures. It transforms routine into adventure. And it reminds us that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones we overlook. So the next time you come across a simple dime, don't just spend it, study it, question it, and give it the attention it deserves, because hidden within that small, silver coin could be a rare error, a collector's dream, and a story waiting to be uncovered. And in a world where true surprises are rare, the idea that something so small could hold unexpected value is what keeps collectors searching, hoping, and discovering every single day. Coin number 2 might be one of the most misunderstood coins in American pocket change, because at first glance, there's absolutely nothing unusual about the 1965 Roosevelt Dime, a coin that millions of people have seen, touched, and spent without ever questioning its significance. Yet behind this seemingly ordinary dime lies a fascinating turning point in U.S. history that changed coinage forever. Because 1965 was the very first year the United States moved away from 90% silver dimes to a copper-nickel clad composition, meaning that almost every 1965 dime you'll ever find contains no silver at all, just layered metals designed for everyday circulation. And that's exactly why this coin becomes so intriguing, because while the vast majority are common and worth only face value, a tiny number of rare transitional errors exist where 1965 dimes were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets from 1964, creating a coin that looks similar but carries a completely different weight, sound, and value. And these rare silver versions are the ones collectors dream about because they were never meant to exist, making them incredibly scarce and highly desirable in the market, often selling for thousands of dollars when authenticated and preserved in high condition. But the mystery doesn't stop there, because even standard-clad versions in exceptional uncirculated condition can carry premiums due to the historical significance of the year and the difficulty of finding. Perfectly preserved example from a time when coins were heavily used and rarely saved, and this is what makes the 1965 Roosevelt Dime so powerful for collectors. It represents a moment of transition, a hidden story within a simple design, and a reminder that sometimes the most valuable discoveries come from understanding the details others ignore, because to the average person, it's just another dime. But to someone who knows what to look for, it could be a rare silver error, a high-grade survivor, or a small piece of history that holds far more value than its 10-cent face suggests. And that's why the next time you come across a 1965 dime without a mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Weigh it, examine it, listen to the sound it makes, and take a closer look, because hidden within that ordinary coin could be an extraordinary story, and possibly a value that most people will never even realize exists. Coin number 3 brings us to a coin that millions of people have seen, but very few have truly understood. Because at first glance, there is nothing unusual about the 1967 Roosevelt Dime, a simple 10-cent piece that quietly circulated during one of the most unusual periods in American coin history. A time when the U.S. Mint made a bold and controversial decision to remove mint marks entirely in an effort to stop collectors from hoarding coins. And as a result, every 1967 dime you will ever find appears without a mint mark, making it seem completely ordinary and easy to overlook. But hidden beneath that ordinary appearance is a deeper story that continues to attract collectors even today, because this coin was produced during a transitional era when the United States had already moved away from 90% silver and into clad coinage, meaning these dimes were made with a copper core layer between nickel. Yet despite being common in circulation, finding one in truly pristine, high-grade condition has become increasingly difficult over time, since most of them were heavily used and rarely preserved. And that's where the value begins to build, because collectors are always searching for the best possible examples. Coins with sharp details, brilliant luster, and surfaces free from scratches or wear, pieces that look almost as if they were minted yesterday. And when such a coin is discovered and professionally graded at the highest levels, it can command impressive prices, far beyond its face value, sometimes reaching hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on its quality. But the real excitement begins when we consider the rare minting errors that can appear on coins like this. Because during periods of high production, mistakes were bound to happen, and those mistakes are what transform an everyday coin into something extraordinary, from off-center strikes that shift the design dramatically, to die cracks that create unusual lines across the surface, to doubled features that subtly distort the lettering or portrait. Each error tells a unique story of something going wrong during the minting process. And in the world of coin collecting, those imperfections are exactly what make a coin more desirable, more valuable, and more fascinating, because they are rare, unpredictable, and impossible to replicate. And what makes the 1967 Roosevelt Dime especially exciting is the fact that these error coins are still out there, hidden in old jars tucked away in forgotten collections, or even mixed in everyday change, waiting to be discovered by someone curious enough to take a closer look. And that's the real magic of this coin. It reminds us that value is not always obvious, that sometimes the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary secrets, and that with just a little attention and knowledge, anyone can turn a simple moment into a potentially valuable discovery. So the next time you come across a 1967 dime without a mint mark, don't. Just spend it without thinking. Take a second look, examine the details, feel the texture, and consider the possibility that you might be holding more than just 10 cents. Because while most of these coins are common, a rare high-grade example or a unique mint error could be worth far more than you ever expected. And in a world where true hidden treasures are becoming harder to find, the idea that one could still be sitting quietly in your pocket change is what keeps collectors searching, hoping, and discovering new stories every single day. Coin number 4 takes us into a world where the smallest details can make the biggest difference. Because at first glance, there is absolutely nothing remarkable about the 1969 Roosevelt Dime, a coin that circulated widely during the late 1960s and passed through countless hands without ever raising suspicion. Yet hidden within this ordinary appearance lies a story that continues to capture the attention of collectors who understand that true value is often buried beneath what seems common. Because while the vast majority of these dimes are only worth their face value, the real excitement begins when you start looking beyond the surface and into the finer details that most people ignore, starting with condition. Since finding a 1969 dime in truly pristine, uncirculated state with strong luster, sharp strike, and minimal marks has become increasingly difficult over time due to heavy circulation. And coins that survive in such high-grade condition can command surprising premiums. In the collector market, especially when professionally graded at the highest levels. But even more fascinating is the possibility of minting errors, because during periods of mass production, small mistakes were inevitable. And those mistakes are what transform a simple coin into a collector's treasure, from off-center strikes that shift the design dramatically to one side, to die cracks that create unusual raised lines across the surface, to subtle doubling in the lettering or date that reveals imperfections in the die itself. Each of these variations adds a layer of uniqueness that collectors actively seek out, and in rare cases, these errors can elevate the value of a 1969 Roosevelt dime from just 10 cents to hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the rarity, visibility, and condition of the error. And what makes this coin even more exciting is the fact that many of these valuable pieces have never been formally discovered or removed from circulation, meaning they could still be hiding in everyday places like coin jars, drawers, or old collections passed down through generations, waiting for someone with a careful eye to finally recognize their significance. And that's what turns this coin into more than just metal. It becomes a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even in a world where most things seem ordinary, there are still hidden treasures waiting to be found by those who are willing to slow down and look closer, because the truth is, most people will overlook a coin like this without a second thought. But for those who understand what to look for, it represents an opportunity, a quiet chance at discovery that could turn something small and simple into something meaningful and valuable. And that is exactly why collectors continue to search through rolls of coins, examine their pocket change, and revisit old collections, because they know that somewhere out there, a rare 1969 Roosevelt dime with a unique error or exceptional condition is still waiting to be found, and the next person to discover it could be someone just like you.